Take a deep breath. Let it go. I kept hearing, I've never been disappointed, says the Lord. You have been disappointed in you, but I have never been disappointed. And he reminded me that he lived in an earth suit. So he knew challenges of the above. If you would the light on while you're going by, thank you. I want to challenge the saints. In Exodus chapter 23, verse 20, God's angels to prepare the way. If you look at back 14, verse 14 says, 3 times a year you are to celebrate a festival to me. Celebrate the feast of unleavened bread, Passover, for 7 days and eat bread made without yeast. As I commanded you, do this at the appointed time in the month of Abib. For in the month you came out of Egypt. No one is to appear before me empty-handed. Celebrate the feast of harvest with the first fruits of your crops you sow in your field. Celebrate the feast of ingathering, Pentecost, at the end of the year when you gather in, first fruits, verse 16 is Pentecost. Celebrate the feast of ingatherings at the end of the year, which is now, when you gather in your crops from the fields. 3 times a year, all the men are to appear before the sovereign Lord. Do not offer the blood of a sacrifice to me, along with anything containing yeast. The fat of my festival offering must not be kept until morning. Bring the best of the first fruits of your soil to the house of the Lord your God, and do not cook young goats in its mother's milk. God, angels to prepare the way. See, I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I have prepared. Pay attention to him and listen to what he says. Do not rebel against him. He will not forgive your rebellion. He will not forgive your rebellion. See, the Lord will, but the angel won't. Since my name is in him, so the nature of the Father is in the angel. If you listen carefully to what he says and do all that I say, I will be an enemy to your enemies and will oppose those who oppose you. My angel will go ahead of you and bring you into the land of the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, Hivites, and Jebusites, and I will wipe them out. Notice it's not you that's wiping them out. Do not bow down before their gods, or worship them, or follow their practices. You must demolish them and break their sacred stones to pieces. That's what you watched last Saturday. when Jonathan Kahn broke the stone and the replica. Verse 25, worship the Lord your God, and his blessing will be on your food and water, and I will take away sickness. I will take away sickness. Do you hold him? See, is that a promise for you and me? Because we're celebrating this feast? Yes. From among you, I will take away sickness from among you, and none will miscarry or be barren in your land. I will give you a full life span. So get ready to live. I could go on from there, but I'd like you to take a peek at verse 31. I will establish your borders from the Red Sea to the Sea of the Philistines, and from the desert to the river. I will hand over to you the people who live in the land, and you will drive them out before you. Do not make a covenant with them or with their gods. Do not let them live in your land, or they will cause you to sin against me, because the worship of their gods will certainly be a snare to you. You know, when you look at some of these promises, you see what he's up to. He's trying to show you a path of victory. And this morning, he pushed my buttons and he told me to go to Isaiah. So come with me to Isaiah chapter 14. And I want you to see how on time these words are concerning what's happening in Israel. Verse 1. The Lord will have compassion on Jacob once again. He will choose Israel and will settle them in their own land. Aliens will join them and unite with the house of Jacob. Nations will take them and bring them to their own place, and the house of Israel will possess the nations. The house of Israel will possess the nations. That's a part of the future. That's a prophetic word. As men servants and maid servants in the Lord's land, they will make captives of their captors and rule over their oppressors. It's again happening even now as we speak. On the day the Lord gives you relief from your suffering and turmoil and cruel bondage, you will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon, or the king of confusion, or the king of finances from the darkness. It's all connected. Okay? The word Babylon means confusion. It also means the use of finances. How the oppressors has come to an end. How his fury has ended. The Lord has broken the rod of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. Principalities and rulers, Ephesians 6. Okay? Rulers are, I would say, been in charge of the earth since Adam. And then they had a reprieve when Noah cleaned up the place. And God prepared to save a family. So, which is in anger struck down the people with unceasing blows and in fury subdued nations. Notice again, the rulers subdued nations. Has anything changed? With relentless aggression, all the lands are at rest and at peace. They break into singing. Even the pine trees and the cedars of Lebanon exalt over you and say, now that you have been laid low, no woodsman comes to cut us down. This morning, and a little bit last night, the commentators that were speaking about what's happening in Israel and about the Israeli push to go forward in spite of what U.S. has said, what the people in authority in our nation have tried to manipulate them. They did not listen. Netanyahu stood his ground and obeyed. And now the commentators are giving their opinion. How could this be? If they had listened to Harris and the associates, all the leadership that has been warring against Israel would still be in power and they'd still be alive. But because he obeyed the Lord. And I listened to Jonathan Cahn last night for about an hour and a half. And he was making some of these comments. And of course, I didn't connect it until this morning with Isaiah 14. But he said, progression is going forward as you see the obedience of Israel. The obedience of Israel is changing the circumstances in the Middle East. Those who have been at war with Israel are now on an alert situation. Very, very much caution is in their choices of making decisions. Will they bow down and release the people that they're still holding? And then one of the programs showed Kamala Harris saying to stand down and not to do anything against the city of Rafah. And I had heard the same, and I've heard it more than once. But that's exactly where the US and Egypt had actually coordinated to keep the darkness working. And the leader that they just destroyed in his own living room, forgot the name, that's not important. What's important is if the advice they were given from the leadership in the United States, instead of listening to what the Holy Ghost said, they would have been in trouble. Jonathan shared about a gentleman that he has a connection to that was told quite a few years ago, 2005, I think, to go to Israel and to give President Netanyahu at the time, wasn't president, and give him a word from the Lord that he was the chosen vessel to serve his nation. But don't bargain away any of Israel's land. Then he said he was elected as prime minister. He got pressured when the administration at the time pushed so that they would give up a whole piece of land in order to buy peace. And then he was voted out of office. Okay. Now you say, well, how can this happen? Well, again, we're talking God's orchestration. He said several years down the road, 2008 or 9, whatever, the same man heard that he wasn't prime minister then, but that he was coming back to the US and they were at some conference together. And this man of God gets the same message: go back and tell Netanyahu that he's going to be reelected. But if he ever gives another piece of our land away, he will be in trouble with the Father. And sure enough, the orchestration was prepared by the Lord. He went to this conference or whatever. He was pressed, and obviously Netanyahu remembered him because of the word had been so severe. And he pointed to him and he said, this time you are going to win. God will put you back in charge. But if you ever give our land away, it is not yours to give away. It's mine. Says the Lord. So watch. Even the pine trees, see again, and the cedars of Lebanon. What's happening now? The army of Israel is in Lebanon. You say, well, what's Lebanon to me? Okay. Ron is right there. He's taking a nap. Almost. No, he's not taking a nap. Okay. His lady friend that just passed away less than a year, Diane, worked for a Lebanese gentleman in Granby who happens to be a school teacher, whose brother lives in Lebanon. His word to me several years back when Diane was still living, he said to me, called me Mr. B or something like that. And he said, do you know my country? Now, this is, he's obviously his native tongue is French because most of the Lebanese were all French. And he said, if you wanted to see the most beautiful city in all of the Middle East, you would go to Beirut because it was called the Paris of the Middle East. It was so full of visitors from all over the world. And he says, my brother is now living. And at that time, he asked me to pray for his brother, and we did. He was dying of cancer, and he was hiding in a mountain retreat somewhere in order to survive what was happening in their city. Because that's when the darkness was taking over their city. And that's a number of years ago. So now again, even the pine trees, which represents people, and the cedars of Lebanon exalt over you and say, now that you have been laid low, no woodman comes to cut us down. What happens? Right now, the Israeli army is cleaning out that part of Lebanon. This is not the men and women of Lebanon that you're against. It's those that have come in and their personal swamp. I don't know how else to say it, but if you take that understanding and look, the grave below is all astir to meet at your coming. It rouses the spirits of the departed to greet you. All those who were leaders in the world. It makes them rise from their throne. All those who were kings over the nations. Well, why is that all brought there? It's because the Lord is coming in to do some house cleaning. They will all respond and they will say to you, you also have become weak as we are. You have become like us. All your pomp has been brought down to the grave. along with the noise of your harps. Maggots are spread out beneath you, and worms cover you. How you have fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to the earth. You who once laid low the nations. So see how the progression speaks of the transformation that's taking place. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. Who is he talking about? I believe he's talking to two. He's talking to Satan and he's talking to Adam. Okay? I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of the assembly and on the utmost heights of the sacred mountain. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds, and I will make myself like the Most High. Do we have any people that think that way? Yes, we do. The swamp is a perfect example of what this type of personality is. But you are brought down to the grave, to the depths of the pit. Those who see you stare at you. They ponder your fate. Is this the man who shook the earth and made the kingdoms tremble? The man who made the world a desert, who overthrew its cities and would not let his captives go home. All the kings of the nations lie in state, each in his own tomb. But you are cast out of your tomb like a rejected branch. You are covered with the slain, with those pierced by the sword, those who descend to the stones of the pit, like a corpse trampled underfoot. You will not join them in burial, for you have destroyed your land and killed your people. The offspring of the wicked will never be mentioned again. Prepare a place to slaughter his sons for the sins of their forefathers. They are not to rise to inherit the land, to cover the earth with their cities. I will rise up against them, declares the Lord Almighty. I will cut off from Babylon her name and survivors, her offsprings and descendants, declared the Lord. I will turn her into a place for owls and into swampland. I will sweep her with the broom of destruction, declares the Lord Almighty. Now, prophesy against Assyria. The Lord Almighty has sworn, surely as I have planned, so it will be, and as I have purposed, so it will stand. I will crush the Assyrians in my land. On my mountain, I will trample him down. Pause. I listened to Huckabee, my wife and I, last night on TBN. Who does he have but a young man who wrote a book? And I forgot the name of the book, but it's really about his captivation. He was traveling the world in his 30s. I read say he's 30 something, could be 40 now. And he went to Syria to visit. And he was walking in a city. Of all places on earth, I would never go to Syria because I know it's loaded with swamp people controlling the entire nation. So he's walking to go towards a restaurant, and a pickup truck came next to him, grabbed him at gunpoint, put him in the middle of the truck, and he disappeared from the face of the earth. He was put in a cell. I guess they gave him a little bit of food, but no language, no interpreter, no phone, no nothing. And it's his parents that literally just never heard from him. So they obviously made a reject. And they're from Kansas City, Missouri. And so he shared his story very briefly. But, this scripture speaks about what? Syria. Assyria at one time was a very beautiful country, but it's been taken over by those who want Israel killed and destroyed. So I was listening to that and I saw this morning and I said, Lord, you put this whole thing together in one chapter. That's what he did. He put this whole thing, this whole package, it's all in this one chapter. So, again, surely as I have planned, so it will be. Notice again, it's his plan. It's not mine or his, right? And as I have purposed, so it will stand. I will crush the Assyrians in my land and my mountains. I will trample him down on my mountain. His yoke will be taken from my people and his burden removed from their shoulders. This is the plan determined for the whole world. Oh, so this is a sample of what he's going to do to the whole world. Why? Because he's getting rid of the swamps all over the world. And if you keep that in mind, that will focus you on the plan of God who is sweeping the land of all the darkness that has been inhabiting it. And it's confirmed in Psalms 37. I shared that with you before. I'm not trying to get you all be worried. No, I want you to rejoice. I want you to give thanks. This is the plan determined for the whole world. This is the hand stretched out over all nations. For the Lord Almighty has purpose, and who can thwart him? His hand is stretched out, and who can turn it back? I don't want to go any further. I just want you to lift your hands to him and say, Father, I refuse to worry about tomorrow. Your angel army is on the job. It's going to guide us every step of the way. We're in the ship and we're not jumping out. You've made a way where there is no way. And yes, there will be destruction. And there will be house cleaning. It'll be happening in the Middle East. But I believe it's going to happen here. You're going to clean this area. New England is no exception. A lot of darkness has moved in. But it's not too big for God. And I thank you for this celebration. Because it's a time for us to reflect who's in control. It's Papa. He's got it all. Right, written down in his book. And we can trust the book because even my name's in the book. I give you praise. I give you all the glory. For this feast is awesome. And the victory is beyond reason. Hallelujah. To the King of Kings, to the Lord of Lords, and to the healer of my soul. Amen.